and welcome back to TNN's coverage of the world's 9 best fantasy football players league. I'm your host, and this is what we have for you this week. It's week 10, and teams are starting to look ahead to the trade deadline and getting back into those divisional games. With that being said, Commissioner Tooch is still sending along a special message to Brett, Will, Vanek, and Joe to send in their $50 buy-in ASAP. And now, here's Danny Football with his picks for Week 10. Hey, what's up, guys? World's 9 best fantasy football players expert, Danny Football here, back with another week of expert predictions. Last week was all right for me, going 3-3, bringing my total on the year up to 30-12. My guest, Tom, also went 3-3. Unfortunately, as we all know, the tie goes to the expert, and Tom has now extended his streak of not being able to beat the expert up to 5 years. But now, it's a new week, there's a new guest, and a new chance to beat the expert. So guest, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hey guys, Miguel Romanello here, defensive coordinator of the historic franchise Undefeated Never Lost. Been a while since I've been on the show. I don't know what's been going on, to be honest. I feel like this year, finally, since I'm kind of competing, or we're kind of competing, I've taken a back seat on trash talking and more of a front seat on actually trying to manage the team. So, yeah, here we go. Excited to see what we have on cue for this week because there's some juicy matchups. So I'm glad to be back.
Yeah, Miguel, it's great to have you here. Sometimes people say there is an inverse relationship between how much attention you pay to the league and how well your team does. So UNL could be a good test case for there. The obvious counterexample, Team Big Chungus, but there may be some relationship there.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'd say, but obvious example, Mike Visconti. So I
Yeah.
don't know. Yeah, we'll see.
A lot of attention, not a great team.
Not a great team, not a great team. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if the strategy works out this year. Probably not.
All right, first up, we have Team M Vanek taking on Worthy of Love. Team M Vanek favored in this one at 58%. This one is our first matchup for a reason. I think these teams are going in two completely different directions, two completely different positions for these teams. And honestly, if Team M Vanek drops this one, it is going to be raising a lot of questions with that organization. Worthy of Love, they are reeling after owner Tom's putrid performance here on the show last week. I will give him, a little bit of slack. Maybe he was distracted trying to run the marathon in the upcoming days, but still an absolutely abysmal performance here on TNN and with the Snake. And it could be a big hit to team morale this week. On top of that, they have the Dak Prescott injury. Things are not looking good for this team. He was one of the very few pieces that this team might be able to trade away for some value. Now he's out. Cooper Rush is in. Team M Vanek, on the other hand, they're fighting for their playoff life. They're like right there on the cusp. They haven't had the best luck. But this one, they have not even set their lineup yet. They are still favored big in this matchup. And that really just goes to show you how lopsided it is between these two teams. I think this one is not even going to be close. I'm going with Team M Vanek to pick up the win.
Yeah, I think this is clearly to me the easiest pick of the week. I'm going to go with Team Vanek. Like you said, they haven't even set the lineup this week, including their quarterback still out. Or no, still Jordan Love, who is on bye. They have 3 players on bye in the lineup right now. They're still out projecting Worthy of Love at 25 points, which is insane. I think if he weren't kind of tight in the playoff race, it'd be fun to just leave that team in there because they'd probably win anyway, but he
Yeah.
probably needs the points for. At the end of the day, yeah, I'm curious to see the direction for these two teams. I think Worthy of Love should just sell the few pieces that they have left. I know for a fact that they're being a little bit more stingy with some
Mm.
like 30-plus-year-old wide receiver twos trying to receive first round compensation for some guys who are probably only going to be useful for another half season, but
Prices will come
Maybe
down. Prices will come down.
I don't know. Apparently, the prices are only going up from my experience. So on absolutely everybody, it seems like 30 is a new 23 for in every position in this league. Yeah, it's been wonderful to try and acquire some like older players in this league so far. But anyway, yeah, I think your analysis is spot on. Not going to talk too much more about this one. Team and Vanek here all the way.
All right, next up, we have Blood, Sweat, and Beers taking on Jesus Christ. It's Jay Sanborn. Blood, Sweat, and Beers currently favored at 80%. Who do you like in this matchup?
I'd say, yeah, good pick here from the TNN producers. Clearly the second most boring matchup of the week. Blood, Sweat, and Beers came out of the gates already Thursday Night Football with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase already putting up 80 points. They're a very interesting team this year. I'm not really sure what they're going to be able to do. Very young with a few like obvious holes in the lineup, but they've been able to build a semblance of a team that's actually
Mhm.
kind of competing for a playoff spot in a tough division. So we'll see how their record is at the end of the season. But going up against probably in my opinion, clearly the second worst team in the league and Jason Bourne. They have a few nice pieces. But yeah, especially with the start after Thursday Night Football, I think it's pretty clear going with BSB.
Yeah, I like that pick here. This one, the TNN producers almost flexed this one into the first spot after that Thursday night performance. Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow just absolutely lit it up. Uh, it's really hard to compete with that stack that Blood, Sweat, and Beers has when they're going off. And, I think this may be one of, if not the biggest favorites that we have ever had in a matchup based off of the sleeper projections at the time of picking. It's something you really got to take into account. I know everyone says the sleeper projections are fake, they don't mean anything, but I'm going to firmly plant my foot down and say, in this instance, they do mean something. You should listen to them. And Jay Sanborn would have to put up a historic performance to pull out the win here. And unfortunately for them, they are not a historic franchise. So I'm going with Blood, Sweat, and Beers. Next up, we have the Texarkana Bandits taking on Team Big Chungus 22. Bandits favored here at 57%. This is another matchup of two teams going in separate directions. Big Chungus, I will give them a little shout out. They did get their first win of the season last week, and the Bandits did take a loss. So, there's a question of will that momentum carry into this week? I'm going to say probably not. Probably not. Fans of the show will know. Miguel, I know you're a big fan. I know you've been taking a little bit of a backseat this year, but I still know that you're a big fan of the show. And you and all the fans at home know that I'm high on the Bandits. And they're giving me absolutely no reason to doubt in this one. Big Chungus, they actually have some really solid pieces on their team. Looking at guys like Tyreek, Alvin Kamara. This makes them a scarier matchup than people might expect given the record, but this is a team I have my eye on as the trade deadline approaches. It's coming up pretty soon, end of week 12. This is week 10, so not a lot of deal flow so far in this league. Maybe a little bit coming later. I don't know. People might be waiting to see how their team stacks up. But with that being said, I expect this one to go as expected, and I'm going to pick the Bandits to pick up a win in this one.
Yeah, it's an interesting pick. I feel quite surprised that you're that solid on this pick, to be honest. I actually realized that in my notes I was going to come back to this one and make a pick later after all
Mm-hmm.
the analysis that I did. So I'm going to have to actually come up with a pick on the spot here. Um, actually, I guess I'll just go through my analysis first, and then you'll see what I come out with at the end. But I think this is going to be a lot closer than the record suggests. Think, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
Big Chunk has just picked up their first win. They're 1-8. The Bandits, I believe, are 6-3, maybe,
Yeah.
or yeah, it's that yeah, 6-3. But in my opinion, these offenses, at least this week, are actually quite closely meshed. Um, I'd actually maybe potentially give the edge to Big Chungus, even though he's starting Miles Sanders and Demario Douglas, not great pieces, but the Bandits running back situation is like clearly, in my opinion, the worst in the league.
Hmm.
Maybe close to
Have you seen Tom's team?
worthy. Yes, I have seen Tom's team, but I mean, we're talking about starting. Who are we starting here? I think um
Tony Pollard?
we're starting Tony Pollard, which is actually fair, but I think they're going up against the Chargers. And Tyjae Spears is coming back. And I think for
Hmm.
their second running back, they might be starting Cam Akers or they were gonna start Justice Hill, but he already played. So I think it's gonna have to be Cam Akers. Um, Not a
Some are
great
saying
position to
Alvin
be
Kamara
in.
would look pretty good on this team.
Some are saying, I mean, yeah, some are saying Alvin Kamara or James Conner or Chuba Hubbard
Hmm.
or Travis Etienne could look pretty good in this team. But yeah, obviously with Brian Robinson being out, Austin Eckler is going to get a bit of a bump. He usually performs pretty well when he's the sole running back in that team. Um, and even in the tight end position, this offense is not that good. He does have Dallas Goedert, but he's clearly selecting to choose to play Zach Ertz here. If he does play
Hmm.
Dallas Goedert, he hasn't been good when Devonta Smith's on the field, and by starting three of the Eagles players, he's going to be maybe correlating himself a little bit with Big Chungus 22 as he starts Jalen Hurts. So that's an interesting predicament. Um, I don't know. I might actually go against you here just because I know the ties go to the expert. I'm trying to see in the other matchups whether we will differ at all. I don't think we will, to be honest. I think I've somehow I'm going to be picking the 1-8 team going up against the Bandits as my one bastion of hope and beating the expert this time around. But you know what? Let's do it. Will, if I get this right, please respond to me. I've been texting you for months. I want some of your players so bad. And it's like, I don't want to put you on blast, but you have been put on blast on the show before
Hmm.
for being absent in this league. So you know what? I'll give you a good price. I'm going to send you, I have first, I have Brandon Ayuk, who's not going to play for the rest of the year. I have a lot of players who you'd be interested in. Please trade with me if you win or lose this game because you're not making the playoffs. I'm on your side though. Please respond to me. I beg you. Um, I don't want to hunt you down. So yeah, I'm going with Big Chungus 22 in this one.
I love it. All right, next up, we have undefeated, never lost, taking on Ham and Throw. Ham and Throw favored at 72%. What are your thoughts on this matchup?
Um, I'm gonna do my best here to not pull a Visconti and talk about my own team for several minutes on end. UNL has been quite unlucky this year with injuries, especially if Nico Collins doesn't come back this week yet. We might end up not starting potentially like four or five or like six best players and like Nico Collins, Chris Olave, JSN, Will Anderson, and I elected not to start Trey Hendrickson since he was going up against one of the best offensive lines in the league yesterday with the Baltimore Ravens. So we're really putting together people that I'm finding on the waiver wire. I think I just picked up Nick Westbrook-Akine.
Hmm.
We might be throwing in there a um, Cedric Wilson, I guess, is not playing anymore. So I really don't know who Danny's gonna elect to put in there. It's gonna be pretty tragic. Um, yeah, and our defensive matchup not that good this week. I would say that in a vacuum on a random week, uh, I would usually select UNL over the Salmon Third team. The Salmon Third team should not be 4-5. I think they're a bad team.
Hmm.
Um, I think their defense leaves a lot to be desired. Um, but still, I think this week we're really going up against injury gods that are way too strong and matchup gods that are way too strong. So I'm actually going to have to go with ham and throw here.
Wow. The rare pick against the own team here on TNN. I have to say I do respect the pick. This is one that is going to be a tough matchup for both of these teams. Both really would like to get a win in this matchup. I think this could determine the trajectory for both of these franchises for the rest of the season, as they're both trying to make a push for the playoffs. For UNL, it would be for the first time ever. Hammond Throw got absolutely smoked last week by too many conks and is now on the outside of the playoffs looking in. UNL is only on the outside looking in because fraudulent Pac 4 leader, the Judon Noodles, automatically qualifies over them. I just like to point that out to all the viewers at home. UNL should be in the playoffs right now. If it were not for the rigged playoff system that we have in this league, UNL would be in the playoffs if the season ended today. The Judon Noodles, terrible team, have scored less points than undefeated, never lost. Just keep that in mind for the rest of the year. Judon Noodles, bad team. But with that being said, I don't think either of these teams are really that good. And when you look at UNL's roster, it is it is up there for one of the most painful to look at in this league. This team is probably going to be running Sterling Shepard and Nick Westbrook Akina out there this week. Cedric Wilson, if he was not recently cut, may have been in the lineup, which is really just egregious at this point in the year. This team desperately needs to make any kind of trade. And I can at least acknowledge, like you mentioned, there's been a lot of injuries to this team. Ayuk, Nico Collins. But seriously, this team is absolutely disgusting to look at right now. Everyone knows that I hate Hammond, like despise Hammond throw. And I always hate to pick them in any matchup, but UNL is really leaving me no choice here. So I'm going to make a pick against UNL. This is not a pick for Hammond throw, but a pick against UNL. And I will very reluctantly be going with Hammond throw in this one.
I respect it. I'm okay with it. You know it's bad when Justin Tucker's missing extra points too. It's just not meant to be.
He might be
Just not meant
cooked.
to be. He might be washed, dude. We're starting Zadarius Smith. This is bad. This is bad.
That's what the defensive coordinator is cooking up this week.
I mean, you know what? He could be the difference. We'll see.
If he's the difference,
The league will have
I'll
to
own up
thank
next
me.
week on the show.
Yeah.
I'll apologize.
I mean, yeah, the league will thank me for putting Hammond throw in their place, but I don't
Yeah.
know. He's gonna be it's gonna be frustrating to listen to.
Moving on, we have the Judon Noodles taking on the Mental Brick Walls. Noodles currently favored at 65%. Here we have two division leaders, but two very different teams. One big thing to note for the Noodles is that Christian McCaffrey should be back. Whether he is at full strength is another question, but he will be back, which will be a nice boost to this team. And as I mentioned on the previous pick, this is a team that certainly needs a big boost and quick. If they were not in this absolutely disgusting, putrid, horrible, no good division that is the Pac 4, they would not be in the playoffs. And frankly, none of the teams in that division should even smell the playoffs. They do not deserve to be in whatsoever. The Brick Walls, they got a very nice win over the Bandits last week, and I think have essentially solidified their spot in the playoffs. Maybe locked in for that first round bye. We will see. It's a little early to say, but they're certainly looking very good for that first round bye. They showed that they can really contend in this league. However, the Brick Walls will likely be rolling Cooper Rush out there at quarterback this week. And they're also going to have Keon Coleman and Michael Pittman not suiting up, which leaves them very thin, having to rely on guys like Trey Palmer in their starting lineup. I've said it before on the show that this team really needs to go out there and make some kind of move for a depth piece. I think that's really going to help them down the stretch here. But for right now, it's not a situation that I like at all. And given that the Noodles are already boosted by that big Lamar performance on Thursday night, I am going to go with the Noodles to get the win in this one.
Yeah, very astute analysis. I see why you're professional in the industry here. Basically, essentially because you said everything I was going to say. The Noodles off with a very strong start here. Lamar putting up 30 already. Mental brick walls, I'd say in a vacuum, not in a vacuum, but without the injuries, no buys, are generally the stronger team here. Or Yeah, without the injuries and stuff like that. Keon Coleman's out, Michael Pittman's out, like you said. You didn't mention because it's been the situation for a while, but in these situations where you have injuries or buys, like Ken Walker and Josh Jacobs as well on bye, it's nice to have a little bit more depth, but he's lost
Mhm.
Stephon Diggs and Chris Godwin for the year. I think, yeah, because of that, I'm going to have to go with the Judon Noodles. I think they are a fraudulent team, like you said. I
Mhm.
think the brick walls, once they do get Josh Jacobs and Ken Walker back in the lineup, things are going to be looking up a little bit more. Michael Pittman, if Joe Flacco plays for the rest of the year, I actually do rate him a little bit higher than I did previously.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, last year I was someone who was very high on the brick walls. I kept saying that them and too many cons would come up and play each other in the finals. I still kind of feel that way. I'm not gonna lie. I do think that both teams need a little bit of an up on defense. Once again, please come to me for your defense needs. I do need to trade a little bit. Trey Hendrickson could be in the block since we're kind of out this year. So yeah, I think with a few more pieces, a few depth pieces, and a few IDPs, the mental brick walls could be in for a deep playoff run. But yeah, right now this is just not the week for them going with the noodles as well.
It's a good pick. Very astute. Finally, in our marquee matchup of the week, we have the SWAT team taking on Too Many Conks. SWAT currently favored in 55%. Who do you like here?
Yeah, Too Many Conks is a team that I've been following closely all year. UNL traded for their first and second round picks with the Brees Hall trade
Mhm.
this year. So you can imagine how ecstatic I was after their weak start. I think they started off going 1-4 with Cooper Kupp out and some other players not performing that well. Joe Mixon was out obviously after the first week. So I was like champion at the bit to see them potentially go into a tank. I was potentially even trying to overpay for some of their players for them to be able to go into the tank earlier on. But clearly, once again, 30-year-old Cooper Cup is worth like three firsts in this day and age,
Mhm.
things like that. So, yeah, but still at face value, one of the best offenses in the league. Joe Mixon, Saquon, Brees Hall, Kareem Hunt, J.K. Dobbins, Cooper Cup. Taysom Hill is going to be great this week with Chris Olave out and Rashid Shaheed out. He's been performing very well when the Saints are thin. On defense, he also has some very big names: Micah Parsons, Daniil Hunter, Josh Allen. However, this team does not give me any confidence because the defensive build just doesn't make any sense. When I tried to trade with him, a little bit of insider information here, he did say that he didn't need help on defense and he was more worried about his
Oh.
offense, which I think is crazy because I think the big names are making him think the defense is better than it actually is.
Mm.
Corners like Derek Stingley, J.C. Horn, these are like big names.
Hmm.
But the build is just not how you want to make your defense. You should be starting safeties mostly at the defensive back positions, as many linebackers as you can. Here he's starting three defensive edges, one defensive tackle, a safety, and two cornerbacks, and then just one actual linebacker and Mac Wilson for the Cardinals, who I think has racked up like 5 sacks a week in the past like 2 or 3 weeks. So
Mac
it's a
Wilson was
team.
recently dropped by the SWAT team. Fun
Yeah,
fact.
exactly. Yeah, fun fact. Was he with the Patriots too? And then he
He
got
was
traded?
with the Patriots.
Yeah, yeah. Knowledge. Um, Defensive coordinator, man. You got to be on top of your stuff. But yeah, no, he's just not a good linebacker. So yeah, the meat and potatoes part of this defense is just not very good. And I feel like this is really a matchup between a team that does not have talent, but is very well built. And the SWAT team, you're putting together people like Jacoby Myers, who's on bye, but is still like one of these guys who's not a big name, but is putting up points. People
Hmm.
like David Montgomery, people like Debo Samuel, who's like isn't as flashy anymore, but like this year has been pretty good. Against a team with people like Micah Parsons, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, JC Horn, but the build is just not correct. Um, I think too many Kongs might be riding a little bit higher on the 4-win streak that they had, but they did go up against some pretty bad teams. Even though they did put up a lot of points, I think they were a little bit unfortunate that they could have put up these points against like actual better teams. He's having a very tough schedule from now on. He's going
Hmm.
up against our division, I guess, mostly with
I,
your.
I I I don't have a division.
Of course, you have a division. Of course, not. I'm sorry. Um, he's going up against SWAT team now, going up against the Bandit soon, going up against Team Vanek, I think, Brick Wall. So he has a very tough schedule ahead of him. Um, I I actually don't foresee the team making the playoffs just because the schedule's so tough, and I don't think his offense is going to be putting up the points that he needs to be able to make it through some of these tough matchups. So I'm actually going with the SWAT team here. I think too many conks should be making moves on defense, picking up linebackers. Please come to me for your linebacker needs. If he wants to make the playoffs, uh, if he doesn't, I think this team is just really destined for failure just because going after the big names and not really doing any analysis on the defensive side.
Yeah, I like that pick. This is a really nice matchup here with a team that has been on fire lately with the Conks going up against the defending champions. The Conks have really turned their season around. Like you said, they've now won 4 in a row. Their points for is actually up there with some of the top teams in this league. A slight step down, but they're still kind of in the conversation of the other playoff teams. I think they could be poised to make a playoff run. Like you mentioned, they have a very good offense. They have their army of 5 running backs in their starting lineup, all solid options. This could be a big make or break game for them and the rest of their season. Their schedule is very hard moving on, and the division they have there is going to be very competitive. I imagine those teams will probably beat up on each other over the last couple of weeks. For SWAT, these are the kinds of games that they really need to win to show that they still have what it takes to be a true contender in this league, one of the top teams vying to put their name on the trophy. They've been kind of hobbling a lineup together for a little bit. As you mentioned, no real star power on this team. They have a lot of wide receiver twos and threes and running backs who can maybe be good flex plays, but somehow it all seems to mesh together and it's been a winning formula for them so far. I'm intrigued to see how they look down the stretch and if there's any moves that this team is going to make. But I think the key to this one is going to be how well TJ Watt does after the bye week and how well Nick Bosa does after getting re-energized, revved up this past Tuesday. I think their momentum is going to carry into this matchup, and I'm going to pick the SWAT team to come out with the win in this one. Well, Miguel, thank you so much for being on the show. I'm wishing you all the best of luck with your picks. Of course, not as good as me, can't beat the expert, but it's been great having you on. And who knows, maybe we'll see you back on in the playoffs. And good luck to UNL. Maybe you guys will make the playoffs for the first time ever.
Yeah. Will, I believe in you. Please. We need a bastion of hope in this league. Let me come back. I want to be here in the playoffs since I'm definitely not going to be in the playoffs with my actual team. Just the injury. Yeah, I don't know. People, God hates UNL, I guess. I don't know.
And thank you, Danny Football and guest Miguel, for those great picks. That's all we have for you this time. Be sure to tune in next week to see how things shook out. I'm your host, and this has been TNN.
Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell.